So you just cut the phone call on the second paragraph.
Good evening, members of committee and members of the public. I will now call the Property Standards Committee to order. As this meeting is being held virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I will go over some of the rules of procedure for the benefit of members and the viewing public. This meeting is being streamed live via the City of Brantford YouTube account. All members of the committee will be muted upon entering the meeting and throughout when they are not speaking in order to reduce background noise. All web cameras for committee members shall be turned on throughout the meeting. If a member needs to leave their seat, please leave the camera on so that we recognize you are away. Staff will be requested to join the video meeting should they need to answer questions from members. Any member of the committee participating shall indicate they wish to speak or ask questions by pressing the raise hand button on the participant list screen. Your hand will stay raised until you are called upon, and staff will lower your hand when you have been called upon by the chair. Movers and seconders of motions shall be indicated by raising your hand on camera, and the chair will call out who the mover and seconders are. All members of committee participating via online video conference will vote by a physical show of hands. A recorded vote will be taken by the clerk. Applicants, agents, owners, and delegations are participating via Zoom or telephone accordingly. All persons wishing to speak to the items on the agenda were required to register by 9 a.m. Any delegations received in written format have been provided to the members of the committee and will form part of the meeting record. In the event of a connection or service interruption that affects quorum for the Committee of Adjustment, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting is adjourned. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Damon Smith. Damon, could you unmute yourself?
I'm here.
Susan Kaplan.
I'm here.
Tamara Capoli.
Here.
Lee Reiner.
Present.
Brenda Hertog. Brenda Hertog.
Present. Members of the committee, do any of you have declarations of conflicts of pecuniary interest to make on any of the items before the committee this evening?
No.
None.
Seeing none, there are no presentations or registered delegates for the meeting. This is a regular meeting of the Property Standards Committee. Members of the committee will hear property standards appeals, then must render decisions on the orders issued. The committee has the authority to confirm, rescind, extend, amend, and/or modify a property standards order. As the hearing is open to the public, please note that the names of persons participating in the hearing will be recorded in the minutes, which is a public record. Our first hearing is for property standards order number 34-20 for 20 Charing Cross Street, Brantford. I will now call upon staff to provide us with details of the report on this matter.
Good evening, Madam Chair, through the committee, Gary Anderson, Manager of Property Standards and Bylaws, City of Brantford. Speaking to item number 4.1 on the agenda for order 3420, this is a matter of an order that was issued on February 28th. We received an appeal regarding this order. I don't want to go into details on this particular file, Madam Clerk, because I'd like to advise the committee that upon reinspection on July the 9th, we found this order to be in complete compliance with all outstanding matters. So at this point in time, on behalf of staff and the bylaw division of the building department. I'm asking the committee to confirm the order, and no further action is required on an extension as we have full and complete compliance, and there'll be no additional administrative fees. That's the request of staff to the committee, Madam Chair.
We are just having a quick technical difficulty here for a moment. Just please bear with us for a moment. Mr. Anderson, would you mind coming back on so that you can just repeat yourself so that Ms. Hertog can hear you? The chair was unable to hear what was going on.
Certainly, Madam Clerk, through the chair and to the committee, Gary Anderson, Manager of Property Standards and Bylaws, Building Department, City Hall, City of Brantford. So regarding item number 4.1 on the agenda for order number 3420, appeal filed by the owner, John R. Sleeth, the owner of 20 Charing Cross Street. For the interest of expediency, I want to advise the committee that as this order was issued on February the 19th, a reinspection on both July the 5th and 9th of this year has shown this property to be in complete compliance with the order and the property standards bylaw. So at this time, on behalf of staff of the bylaw division, I'm asking the committee to confirm the order, and no further action is required at this time on the order as we have compliance, and no additional administrative fees will be assessed. That's the request of staff through the committee, Madam Chair.
Just go ahead, Tom. Just ask for mover and seconder.
Do we have a mover and a seconder for the motion?
I'll move.
Any discussion on the motion? I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
Members, just for point of clarification in regards to this, the motion that is before you then is to allow and to confirm, and that no further action be taken. So for all members in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and keep it raised until you hear your name. Damon Smith, Susan Kaplan, Tamara Capoli, Lee Reiner. Madam Chair, are you in favor? Are you in favor? In favor? Thank you. The item carried unanimously on recorded vote.
Next one. The next item on the agenda is the appeal filed by, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, Gong Mei Yi, owner of 251 Brant Avenue, Brantford, Ontario, regarding property standards order number 31-20, 2020-327. And I will call upon Mr. Anderson to provide details of the order.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through the committee. What I'm going to do at this point in time is, for the record, I want to advise the committee on a number of facts from a management perspective. And then I'm going to ask the officer that was involved with the investigation and the issuance of the order to give details of the matter for the committee's benefit. So what I want to do for the committee's reference and for the minutes is advise the committee that the property standards bylaw is governed by the Ontario Building Code Act and is enforced reactively to complaints as they are received by our office. The general process is we receive a complaint and we inspect, and we find violations. We notify the owners via a preliminary letter detailing the violations in the hopes of bridging some communication and bring about compliance. If we find that compliance is not forthcoming or the communication is not moving forward very well, we ask our legal department to undertake a title search and provide proper registered ownership of the property. And once that's done, we issue the appropriate order. So that's been followed in the files that are before you this evening. I just wanted that on the record from the department's perspective on how the property standards bylaw is enforced within the city of Brantford. So I'm going to ask each officer who has a file before you this evening to give you details of each of their individual files as they have firsthand experience. So the matter that's before you, firstly, is for the order number 3120 for 251 Brant Avenue. So I will sign off and I will ask Officer Erskine, Patrick Erskine of the Bylaw Enforcement Division, to give you the facts relevant to this matter. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Hello. Good evening, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair. In this particular case, a complaint was received on January 13th, 2020 regarding a fence and disrepair at 251 Brant Ave, Brantford. Preliminary inspection occurred on January 14th, 2020 by Municipal Law Enforcement Property Standards Officer Patrick Erskine. This inspection confirmed 3 8-foot sections of the rear yard fence at 251 Brant Avenue had fallen over into the property. As is standard practice, a preliminary letter dated January 16th, 2020 was sent to the owner of the property detailing this violation. As an aside, waste was also confirmed on site as a violation of the city's lot maintenance and waste bylaw, resulting in a similar preliminary letter. On January 22nd, 2020, the owner contacted Officer Erskine to advise that the waste would be promptly removed by the tenant and the defective fence portions will be removed by February 3rd, 2020. A re-inspection conducted February 3rd, 2020 had shown that the defective fence portions to remain. On inspection, additional violations of the city's property standards bylaw were observed, which included defective nosing on the front steps, a screen on the front door in disrepair, concrete walking in disrepair, and lastly, a rear yard shed that was not structurally sound. It was the decision of the bylaw division to move forward with the issuance of the applicable property standards order for these noted violations. A request was then made to the city's legal and real estate department to undertake a title search to confirm property ownership. This information was returned on February 4th, 2020, which showed the subject property known municipally as 251 Brant Avenue, Brantford, Ontario, to be owned by Dongmi Melissa Yi of Scarborough, Ontario. Accordingly, Property Standards Order 3120 was issued on February 13th, 2020 to its registered owner, detailing all the above noted violations of the Property Standards bylaw. The final date for filing a notice of appeal was March 4th, 2020. A notice of appeal was received on the deadline date, detailing a breach of procedural fairness. At the writing of this report, the property remains in contravention of this issued Property Standards Order and the city's Property Standards bylaw. However, at today's appeal inspection, all items have been complied with. Through the chair.
Thank you. Do members of the committee have any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, any further updates from staff?
Yes, of today's appeal inspection, all items have been complied with. And it is with the that the order shall be confirmed and upheld by the Property Standards Committee.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, did you have a question? I can't hear him.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Gary. So what, if everything's in compliance, the city standing on what should take place and your recommendations, sir.
Thank you, member, through the chair. So our request at this time will be very similar to the matter we just dealt with, that on inspection, we have determined complete compliance. So we're asking for the order to be confirmed and no further action is required at this time and no additional administrative fees will be assessed. That's the position of the city at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion from the committee on how they wish to deal with this appeal.
I'll move that the appeal filed by Don Ying Mei, I'm sorry, of 251 Brant Ave be confirmed and upheld regarding the property standards order 3120. Is that it?
Thank you. I'm sorry. We still need to hear from the applicant on this issue.
Okay, hold on.
Ms. Yee?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Could you please state your name and address for the record, please, ma'am?
So I'm the owner of the house on 251 Brant Ave.
Could I have you state your name and address though, please, ma'am?
My name is Melissa Ye, also Dongmei Ye, also Melissa Ye. I'm the owner of 251 Brant Ave.
And what are you asking the committee for this evening, ma'am?
I want the committee to cancel this order because this order never follow any steps of the standard procedure. And I didn't know the issues before I get this order from the manager, Gary. I was not sent a preliminary letter regarding all the issues on that work order. And when I complained to Gary, he sent me the email attached with this order. So this order was never received by register mail. So I didn't know anything about this. I do my maintenance twice a year. So all those issues I never heard of before I got this paper from Gary. So this order is not following the legal procedure. I have no notice. So I don't think it's fair if you confirm the order. So
Okay.
my request is I don't want the order confirmed. And also because during this matter, the officer, Mr. Erkson, I think we cannot communicate very fairly. He didn't treat me that fair, so I don't want him to involve in my case in the future. So to prevent more trouble for me, any reprisal. So I sent the committee 3 pages of the submissions. So please read the details to support my request.
Okay, thank you. Do any members of the committee have any questions for the appellant at this point in time? Seeing none. Okay, I will, and my apologies to everyone for getting ahead of myself. I will now entertain a motion from the committee dealing with this appeal. Mr. Reiner?
Do we have room for any questions, discussion?
Once we have a motion on the table, then we can have a discussion.
Okay, so I'll move that the appeal filed by Dongmei Yi of 251 Brant Ave, Brantford, regarding property standards order 31-2020 the appeal be denied and that this order be confirmed and upheld by the Property Standards Committee.
Do we have a seconder?
Whoever. Are we denying or confirming?
Just through the chair, if I may confirm, it's my understanding that this is the clerk Julia Sippel, that Mr. Anderson had stated that we would be, that he's recommending allowance and confirming the order and that no further action be taken due to the fact that today's inspection ended up with no further issues associated with it. Is that what you were asking for, Mr. Reiner?
Yeah, did I say it wrong?
That's okay.
Sorry.
No worries. So we are still seeking a seconder on that.
I'll second that.
And
Is there any discussion required on the motion?
Through you, Madam Chair, can Mr. Anderson just explain what the ramifications of these actions are to the committee and the appellant? There might be some confusion. If we're doing what we're doing, everything's been complied with. There's no further action to be taken, is my understanding, right?
Through the chair of the member, that's correct. What we're asking for is confirmation of the order as it was issued because of the violations that Officer Erskine has detailed. However, on inspection today, as Officer Erskine has also detailed, we have compliance. So I'm asking simply that the order be confirmed in its original state and no further action is necessary by the committee at this time, and no additional administrative fees will be assessed because we now have compliance. As the committee is aware, that the property standards bylaw allows for additional fees if there is an extension of time granted or additional action is required on behalf of this order. What I'm advising the committee at this time is there's no further action required on this order, so no additional fees will be assessed and the matter is therefore closed.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to make sure that the appellant understands what's happening here.
Hello?
Okay, is there any further discussion required then?
I want to say this order didn't follow the procedure.
Okay, we've already have a motion on the floor dealing with this order, Ms. Yee. So I think at this point I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
Thank you, members of committee. So the motion before you is to confirm the order, no further actions be taken, which would not result in any further administration fees. For all of those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand and leave it raised until I've called your name. Damon Smith, Susan Kaplan, Tamara Capoli, Lee Reiner, Brenda Hertog. So the motion has carried unanimously on a recorded vote.
The next item on our agenda is Property Standards Order 28-20 for 293-295 Greenwich Street, Upper Unit, Brantford, and I will call upon staff to provide us with details of the report.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, to the committee. This complaint was received on February 5th, 2020 regarding a mouse infestation within the upper unit of the property known municipally as 293-295 Greenwich Street in the city of Brantford, Ontario. A preliminary inspection was conducted on February 7th, 2020. On that inspection, I confirmed several violations of the city's property standards bylaws that exist. These violations included a deadbolt lock to the front door that did not latch and secure, a dead mouse found within the unit on that inspection date, mouse feces within the entire unit, and no running water within the unit as well. Due to the history with this unit and the property standards bylaw violations at the property, it was a decision of the bylaw enforcement division and the building department to proceed directly to the applicable property standards order. A request was then made to the city's legal and real estate department to confirm ownership of the subject property. This information was returned on February 11th, 2020, that showed the subject property of 293-295 Greenwich Street in the city of Brantford, Ontario, to be jointly owned by a Christina Mahara Prasad and a Deonat Prasad of Brampton and Brantford, Ontario. Accordingly, property standards order number 28-20 was issued on February 12th, 2020, detailing these 3 violations requiring repair. A notice of appeal from the registered owner was received by the building department on March 3rd, 2020, the deadline date for filing such an appeal. The owner is requesting additional time to complete all of the required repairs. At the writing of this report, the property does remain in non-compliance to the issued property standards order and is within the city of Brantford. We're asking that the order be confirmed and upheld at this point.
Okay, do any members of the committee have any questions for staff at this time? Ms. Capoli?
I through you, the chair. Are there tenants in this building right now?
Through the chair to the committee, yes, there is currently still a tenant within the residence.
And have any of the repairs been made yet?
Through the chair to the committee, with speaking to the tenant today, no repairs have been completed.
Mr. Smith, did you have a question?
Yes, Madam Chair, through you. So there's no running water at all still to this date?
Through the chair to the committee, we haven't done any interior inspections at this point in time. We haven't started that back up yet with the building division. With speaking by telephone to the tenant today at that residence, she is still without running water.
Are there any further questions for staff at this time? I will now call upon the appellant to address the committee. Could you please provide the committee with your name and address first, and then advise the committee what you are seeking from us this evening? Good evening, sir.
Hi, my name is Deonat Prasad. My address is my personal address.
Yes.
Is 12 Trotters Lane in Brampton, Ontario.
And what are you asking the committee for this evening, sir?
I have a property manager for the property, and they've asked me to request a 6-week extension to comply with the order. I'm more than happy to comply with everything that's stated in the order. The issue we've had with the unit specifically is the tenant continues to refuse entry to the property manager to both do the inspections as well as to do the necessary repairs. We did have an exterminator company who had went in initially to address the mouse issue, but the tenant had refused entry to a number of the rooms within the unit, so they weren't able to fully inspect and manage whatever might be causing the infestation. And since then, they have not, every time the property manager tries to go over to seek access to the unit, the tenant will not allow them any type of entry. So that's been the main barrier we've had so far.
So you're asking for 6 weeks to complete all of the items?
Yes, and sorry, I'm a little bit green with this. I don't know how this works, but if there's any way that maybe even from one of the officers to try to help sway the tenant to allow us entry to do what needs to be done, because we've had similar issues with even the fire inspection not being able to gain access to the unit.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything that can be done on your end to help us gain access to the unit, just to help obviously remedy that situation.
Okay. Are there any questions for the appellant at this time? Ms. Kaplan?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the appellant, has the proper notification been provided to the tenant in accordance with the Tenancy Act?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
But you have no, just a follow-up question, but you have no documentation to show that the appropriate notice was given to the tenant?
I apologize. I don't have anything on me. Like I mentioned, the property management company I work with has been dealing with that, and I don't have anything right here to show you. I apologize. No, I don't.
Mr. Smith?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the appellant, are you taking any steps to evict this tenant? And if so, when do you think it would take place so that this problem can be be looked after?
So eviction. Sorry, I'm allowed to answer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Eviction proceedings had already started way prior to this. Prior to this notice, there was actually a date at the tenant board. I think it was set for the first week of April, but obviously because of COVID, that didn't happen. So eviction processes had already started way before this complaint.
Do you still have a timeline that you think it would be reasonable to do? I mean, I can understand the tenant not letting you in when you've started eviction notice,
right?
And they get their backup, but at the same time, what's the timeline that's going to be required for us to make a pertinent decision on your behalf or the tenants?
I'm actually supposed to have a meeting with the management company tomorrow because they mentioned that the proceedings for the landlord tenant board have restarted again. So they didn't give me a specific date that hearing would be taking place, but that's why they had mentioned the 6-week timeline in terms of trying to get everything resolved.
Thank you.
Ms. Capoli, did you have a question?
Yes, through you, Chair, to the appellant. Just wonder, up till this point, have you reached out to the property standards, the bylaw officer, to assist you in entering the property?
So I have been in contact, I think it was with Jerry Lynn Hack, but not with respect to gaining access to the property. No, not from me directly, possibly the property manager.
Are there any further questions for the appellant at this time? Mr. Anderson, any follow-up from staff?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Through the committee, the appellant's inquiry for, in this case, Officer Harrower, to assist with assist the appellant to have this matter remedied. I can advise the committee that we're fine to do that because actually, as the committee may be aware, the offense of obstruction is a violation under the Building Code Act for a tenant to obstruct an owner and bringing about compliance. So I don't have a problem with Officer Harrower bringing that education piece forward to the tenant that they need to assist and not obstruct an owner in their attempts to comply.
Thank you. Are there any further questions at all in this matter? I will now entertain a motion from the committee on how they wish to deal with this appeal.
I move.
Mr. Smith?
You're muted.
Muted, Damon.
Okay, I'm sorry. Appeal filed by Dion Prasad, a co-owner of 295 Greenwich Street, Brantford, Ontario, regarding property standards order 2820 be confirmed and upheld with an extension time of 8 weeks.
Do we have a seconder for this motion? Ms. Kaplan? Is there any discussion required on the motion? Mr. Reiner?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe he was asking for 6 weeks of an extension. Is the motion still to be 8 weeks to the member? Yeah, okay.
Yes, I believe the motion was for 8 weeks. Was it, Mr. Smith? Mr.
Yes, for 8
Anderson?
weeks, because we don't know when they're gonna have a hearing. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt of 2 weeks. I don't even know if that's enough.
Ms. Capoli?
I just argue that these are health and safety issues. Like this is an unlocked door and no running water. I think that, 2 months for a landlord to get that kind of a fix is excessive. And I would like to see that reduced. I would think that 3 weeks should be plenty to get a plumber and a locksmith in there at least.
Mr. Reiner?
Through Madam Chair, if we could just have Mr. Anderson comment
Certainly.
on the extent of timeline.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, through the committee. I don't want to be involved in the amount of time that's given. I must express some concern in that there's been issues with this particular tenant. I agree with Member Capoli's comments that there are some health safety issues here. All I'm asking is when the committee is granted an extension of time that they actually put a date to it as opposed to a time of 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks. I would prefer from staff's perspective and for legality that there's actually a date so we could figure out what that time period is and just put an actual date on the extension. That's easier for staff and also for the appellant to understand that there is a timeline of X date. So if I could just ask the members when they're bringing forward a motion that they put a date on it rather than a category of a time period. That was my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Then Mr. Smith, if we could go back to you and put a date on the motion for extension.
I'll just say August the 13th.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
Thank you. Just for clarification of members, the motion before you is to confirm and uphold with an extension of August 13th, 2020. And I just want to confirm as well that Ms. Kaplan, you're comfortable with that as the seconder to the motion?
I am.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and keep it raised until your name is called. Damon Smith, Susan Kaplan, Tamara Capoli, Lee Reiner, Brenda Hertog. Thank you. The item has been approved unanimously with an extension of August 13th, and staff will be in touch. Mr. Prasad, however, you are up for the next hearing as well.
Okay, the next hearing is for Property Standards Order 08-20 for 293-295 Granite Street, Lower Unit, Brantford. And I will call upon staff to provide us with details of the report on this matter. If we could have staff provide us with details of the order, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, through the committee. The property standards bylaw is primarily enforced on a reactive basis to complaints as they are received by the bylaw enforcement division of the building department. In this particular case, a complaint was received on December the 13th, 2019, regarding the condition of the unit at 293 Greenwich Street, the lower level unit, Brantford, Ontario. Preliminary inspection conducted December the 16th, 2019 confirmed several violations of the city's property standards bylaw to exist. These offenses included 2 basement bedroom windows that do not open and do not meet the required size as per the Ontario Building Code, mice feces throughout the kitchen, missing window screens in the kitchen and living room. The entrance door to the unit does not lock and is not airtight, and the heat in the bedroom measured 18.5 degrees Celsius, which is below the required minimum temperature of 21 degrees Celsius. As is standard practice, a preliminary letter was sent to the owner dated December the 16th, 2019, detailing these deficiencies and required remedies. No communication was subsequently received from the owner. A re-inspection conducted January the 9th, 2020 showed no change in the condition of the unit, with all violations remaining. It was the decision of the bylaw division to move forward with the issuance of the applicable property standards order. A request was then made to our legal department to confirm ownership. Information was returned January the 15th, 2020 that showed the subject property of 293 Greenwich Street, Brantford, to be jointly owned by Christina Mahar Prasad and Dioned Prasad of Brampton and Brantford, Ontario. Accordingly, property standards order number 08-20 was issued January 20th, 2020, requiring all required repairs as identified in this report. A notice of appeal was then received by the building department February the 9th, 2020 from the registered owner prior to the deadline date of February 10th, 2020. The appellant is requesting additional time to complete the required repairs. At the writing of this report, the property remains in non-compliance to both the issued property standards order and the property standards bylaw. I can confirm that today, because we are not doing any interior inspections at this point, I did call the original tenant to verify if the violations had been complied with, if any repairs had been done. They moved out May the 1st, 2020, but at the time and prior to that, nothing had been done. It's unclear to me if the unit is now occupied or not. And I'm asking that the order be upheld and confirmed.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, I will now call upon the appellant to address the committee. And just for the record, sir, I will have you again state your name and address for the record. Mr. Prasad.
Hi, members of committee and chair. It appears that Mr. Prasad is having some technical difficulties. We seem to have lost him off of the line. I would ask maybe if we could have a 2-minute recess to see if we can't get him back on. I'm seeing no objections to that, so we'll just recess very quickly.
Hello?
Mr. Prasad?
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. I just lost my internet. I'm just calling.
Not a problem. I know you did it for the previous order, but I'm going to again ask you to state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Deonan Prasad, 12 Trotters Lane, Brampton, Ontario.
And with respect to this matter, what are you asking the committee for, sir?
All the supplies, well, for the windows and stuff, everything's been ordered. Some of the items on the notice have already been complied with. I know the window repairs, we have the windows in their app there. We have them. They just need to be installed. The tenant did move out, but obviously with COVID, it's been hard to get people to do anything. So I was just going to ask for a 4-week extension just to get all the work done. The front door has already been repaired. The lattice has already been repaired. So majority of items have already been taken care of. It's just the few remaining matters, just for a 4-week extension.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the appellant at this time? Ms. Capoli?
Through you, Chair, to the appellant. So there is no tenant in this unit at this time?
There is actually a tenant because there was upstairs, there was a roommate. There was 2 tenants who were staying together, and an incident had happened and the police were involved and one had to be charged. So they asked, I tried to separate them, but this was during the moments of COVID. So I offered the unit, obviously, the unit had already been cleaned out. And again, the repairs had already been started and they didn't have anywhere else to go. So there is someone staying in the unit right now by herself.
Any further questions for the appellant? Seeing none. Any follow-up from staff?
Through the chair, no follow-up from staff. Madam Chair, we're asking that the order be confirmed. The request of 4 weeks is a relatively reasonable one. Again, I would just ask that that be put down in a date as opposed to 4 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion from the committee with respect to this appeal. Ms. Capoli?
Okay, I guess I motion that the appeal filed by Mr. Persaud and family, the owners at the lower unit of 270, where am I at? 293 Greenwich, property standards order 0820 be allowed, be confirmed and upheld, and that the following extension of time be granted to August 13th, I believe is what we did for the previous one, to address all the outstanding deficiencies contained in the order.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Ms. Kaplan? Is there any discussion required on this motion? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
Thank you. All members in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Susan Kaplan, Damon Smith, Tamara Capoli, Brenda Hertog, Lee Reiner. The motion is approved unanimously on a recorded vote. Mr. Prasad, staff will be in touch.
Thank you.
Our next hearing is for property standard. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Mr. Prasad, the committee's decision has been made on your appeal. You will receive official notification of the decision from the building department. If you wish to appeal the decision to the Superior Court, instructions will be sent with the notification from the building department. As the committee did not quash the order, an additional administrative fee of $125 will be assessed, and all those details will come to you in the mail.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next hearing is for Property Standards Order 10-20 for 34 Cayuga Street, Brantford, and I will again call upon staff for details of the report.
Through the chair to the committee, the property standards bylaw is primarily enforced on a reactive basis to complaints as they are received by the Bylaw Enforcement Division of the Building Department. In this particular case, a complaint was received on December 18th, 2019, regarding the condition of the property at 34 Cayuga Street, Brantford, Ontario. A preliminary inspection conducted January the 2nd, 2020 confirmed several violations of the city's property standards bylaw to exist. These violations included mold in a front room closet, mold in their son's bedroom closet and on the interior bedroom walls, missing hand railing on the upper staircase, spindles missing on the bottom staircase, hand railing. The main entry door to the unit was not airtight. A rear detached garage in the back of the house was in disrepair, and the wood cladding on the detached garage was not weather treated. The front porch is in disrepair and upper section not attached to the lower section. The front porch requires painting, and lastly, the basement window at the right side of the house is in disrepair. A review of files within the bylaw division of the building department revealed a history of violations of the property standards bylaw to exist at this particular property. Based on this history, it was the decision of the bylaw division to move forward directly with the issuance of the applicable property standards order. A request was then made to our legal department to confirm ownership. Information was returned January the 15th, 2020 that showed the subject property of 34 Cayuga Street, Brantford to be owned by Henry Peter Venema of Brantford. Mr. Venema has owned the property since 1989. Accordingly, property standards order number 10-20 was issued January 20th, 2020, requiring repairs of all items previously identified in this report. A notice of appeal was then received by the building department on January the 30th, 2020 from the registered owner prior to the deadline date of February 10th, 2020. The appellant is requesting additional time to complete the required repairs. At the writing of this report, the property remains in non-compliance to both the issued property standards order and the property standards bylaw. I can confirm today, I did try to contact the tenants. I left voice messages. I have not heard back, but I did attend the property and I did a reinspection of the exterior violations. And I can confirm that the exterior violations are still outstanding. The detached garage in the rear is still in violation, as is the front porch. And I'm asking that the order to be upheld and confirmed.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, I will now call upon the appellant to address the committee. Could you please provide the committee with your name and address, please, sir?
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I'm Henry Venema. I live at 14 Powerline Road, Brantford, Ontario.
And what is it that you're asking the committee for this evening, sir?
Just more time to complete those repairs.
And how much time?
I was hoping till October 30th.
Okay, questions for the appellant? Mr. Smith?
Why such an extensive timeline? I mean, this has been going on and you've had notice of this for some time. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'll try to. Due to this COVID thing, like we are in a house repair business and we got shut out of jobs. So due to that fact, our cash flow is very low right now. So we're looking like right now to make some money so we can afford to do the repairs that we're at 34 Cayuga Street, if that makes any sense. So with that in mind, unless I get a loan somewhere, talk to my mom and dad about that maybe or something like that. But yeah, we've been suffering pretty badly from the whole COVID thing. And so therefore, if I can get a little extra time just to work around, work at that house, of course, but also do a job so I can make money so I can afford to do those renovations as well. Because as you can see, that garage does need a bit of work. The back side of it has been sided. The one side that you can't, like, you can only see the worst of it, of course. You see the front of it. So we've done the back, this one side, the left side. We started on the right, and we're working toward the front. And the idea is to redo the whole front. So we'll have a nice garage door on it with a man door and make it look appealing to you guys, of course, and to the public, and to make it look good. It's the roof on it is good. So that's all good. So just a matter of some siding and a garage door and a man door. And of course, those things cost money. And so that's why I'm looking for a little extra time.
Has the inside been done yet?
Of the garage?
No, I'm talking inside the house.
Oh, yes. So if you talk to Jerry Lynn again, so she basically the mold issue and the door not sealing properly and the handrail missing was all addressed. As soon as she called me, we went the next day and we took care of those items promptly. But it was the middle of winter, so we couldn't, and then we couldn't really, couldn't do the outside stuff because it was so cold and stuff. And plus then COVID happened, and now I'm talking to you guys. So yeah, we did address the other issues though right away.
I'm still more concerned with that front porch.
Yeah,
and the disrepair of that. I mean, that does not look healthy.
It doesn't look, you're right, it looks pretty bad. So our thoughts with that is, of course, all that nice ornate wood has come into disrepair. So our thoughts are to remove that and just square it up and make it look more functional as opposed to nice. Like make it look good still, like maybe bring it up to date as a more of a square look, as opposed to all that fancy ornate stuff that they used to put on back in the I guess 1900s. I'm not sure what year that house is, but you know, it's pretty nice back in the day, but it certainly isn't. It's not like that piece that you saw that's attached right to the house. It's not really supporting anything. It's like the porch is not falling off the house. Like that picture looks like it is. I agree, but as far as structurally goes, the roof and all that is only 2 years old. It's only a year old now. Yeah, let's look at the picture. So as you can see, that one post, yeah, it looks like the paint, it's not looking great too. So our thoughts are, now that the weather's warmer, to scrape that bit of paint and either cap it with aluminum or paint it up. And we'll probably paint it up and put all new handrails on it too, to make it look good. It is under 2 feet, so we don't necessarily have to put a new rail on it, but I think it might look better with a new handrail on it, like for curb appeal. Would you agree?
Well, it needs curb appeal, that's for sure. I have no further questions.
Mrs. Capoli?
Through you, Chair, Mr. Venema. Sorry, so you've owned this building for a little over 30 years?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the appellant at this time? Is there any follow-up from staff?
Through the chair, on behalf of staff and the bylaw division, we are asking that the order be confirmed as Officer Ock has said. The appellant's asking for a rather extensive period of time, and I can certainly understand the position regarding general contractors having been out of work for a while, but they've also been back for quite some time now. So our expectation is that the work should commence certainly sooner than that. The weather is certainly on Mr. Venema's side. So we would oppose the extension that's being requested by the appellant and ask that it be completed in a more expedient time frame. That time frame I'll leave to the committee, but we're opposed to an extension of the end of October. But that's the position of staff at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion from the committee on how to deal with this appeal. Ms. Capoli?
I'll make a motion that the appeal filed by Mr. Venema, owner of, I lose the address every time, 34 Cayuga Street, by property standards order number, again,
M20.
Lord help me. Well, 1020, there you go, 10-20, be allowed, be confirmed and upheld by the Property Standards Committee, and that the following extension of time be granted to address all the outstanding deficiencies. The extension granted to, I'm favoring a 4-week window, going to August 13 again.
And do we have a seconder? Seconded by Damon Smith. Is there any discussion required on the motion? I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
All members of the committee in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Tamara Capoli, Susan Kaplan, Damon Smith, Lee Reiner, Brenda Hertog. The motion has carried unanimously on a recorded vote.
The committee's decision has been made on your appeal, Mr. Venema. You will receive official notification of the decision from the building department. And if you wish to appeal our decision to the Superior Court, instructions will be sent with the notification that you receive from the building department. And as the committee did not quash the order, there is an additional administrative fee of $125 assessed. All of that information will be provided to you. Thank you very much, sir. Our next hearing is for Property Standards Order 05-20 for 88 Burkett Lane, Brantford, and I will call upon staff for details of the report.
Good evening once again, through the chair to the committee. The Property Standards Bylaw is primarily enforced on a reactive basis to complaints as they are received by the Bylaw Enforcement Division of the Building Department. In this particular case, a complaint was received on November the 19th, 2019, regarding a fire damaged building at the property known municipally as 88 Burkett Lane, Brantford, Ontario. This matter was previously brought before the Property Standards Committee on Thursday, January the 23rd, 2020, and was respectively quashed due to incorrect ownership information on the issued order. A further preliminary inspection conducted January the 2nd, 2020 confirmed fire damaged house and foundation in disrepair, creating an unsafe condition, a barn in the rear yard in severe disrepair, causing an unsafe condition, and lastly, a large accessory structure in the rear yard also in disrepair. A demolition permit would be required to have all such buildings demolished and removed from the site. Communication was subsequently received by the manager of property standards and bylaws confirming a change in ownership. With this new information, it was the decision of the Bylaw Enforcement Division of the Building Department to move forward with the issuance of the applicable Property Standards Order detailing all of these deficiencies and required remedies. A request was then made to our legal department to confirm this new ownership information. Information was then returned on January the 16th, 2020 from the city's legal and real estate department that showed the subject property of 88 Burkett Lane, Brantford, Ontario to be owned by Burkett Investment Incorporation of Brantford and Hamilton, Ontario. Accordingly, Property Standards Order number 05-20 was issued January the 17th, 2020, requiring demolition of the subject property buildings. A notice of appeal was then received by the building department on February the 4th, 2020 from the registered owner prior to the deadline date of February 6th, 2020. The appellant is requesting additional time to complete the required repairs. Subsequent correspondence was received from the registered owner's legal counsel, Sharon Gill of Oakmont Law Firm of Burlington, Ontario, noting that the owner's intentions are to demolish the existing structures on the premises and redevelop the property. To date, the building department has not received any applications for demolition permits or redevelopment plans. At the writing of this report, the property remains in compliance to both the issued Property Standards Order and the Property Standards Bylaw. I can confirm that today I did do a reinspection and all of the violations still remain. And I'm asking that the order to be upheld and confirmed.
Thank you. Questions for staff at this time? Mrs. Capoli?
Through you, Chair, to Jerry Lynn. What do we know when the fire happened? Like, how long has this building been sitting like that?
Through the chair to Tamara. It happened in November. We received a call from the fire department within a day after it happened. So it would have been about the middle of November.
Mr. Smith?
Through you, Madam Chair. Gary, what is the timeline that is needed to put in a demolition permit? And would you please enlighten us?
Sorry, first time I've done that. Through the chair, if I can defer to Acting Chief Building Official Andy McMahon, who's also on the hearing tonight, to speak to the requirements for a demolition permit application. I'll defer to Mr. McMahon.
Andy McMahon, Acting Director of Building Services and Chief Building Official. So a demolition permit application, once it's submitted, a complete application, it can usually be issued within a couple of days. Usually the delay is getting a completed application because it requires signatures from various utility companies and other departments. They're required to sign off on the demolition prior to us issuing the permit. So that's usually where the delay is. It typically would take an applicant, 1 to 2 weeks to meet all of those conditions.
Mr. Reiner, did you have a question?
Yes, Madam Chair, my question is there's a couple questions. Is the building fenced off or is it currently open to trespass? And my second question is, if we were to confirm this order, is the city going to come in and do the demo itself? Is that the process?
Through the chair to the committee, if I could answer on the fencing part of it. Originally, when the fire happened, we ended up having a contractor go over and remove a lot of the house that was damaged. It had basically just fallen and it was just a heap. So after that was done, our contractor did fence off that area just to keep people out away from the foundation that still remains. When I was there today, the fencing has been completely removed. And so it's actually, I would say, an unsafe issue at this point because the foundation is wide open. And as is the barn in the back and the accessory structure, none of them are fenced off either.
Are there any further questions for staff at this time?
Madam Chair, if I could just interject and perhaps speak to the second part of Member Reiner's question, Gary Anderson here. Just it would be our position that if the order is confirmed and the appeal period has expired to Superior Court, it would be our intention to move forward with compliance options and undertake a demolition permit and have those remaining buildings demolished. That would be our intention, correct?
Thank you. Any further questions, Mrs. Capoli?
Sorry, just to follow up on the, so the original cleanup that we did, or the city did, was that a cost that was carried over to the homeowners or the property owners, I guess? Or is that a cost of demolishing a building after a fire?
Madam Chair, through the member, the cost of the cleanup that we did of the property after the fire was borne on the taxes of the property. That was under a lot maintenance and waste bylaw order under the Municipal Act, but the same provisions apply as when work is undertaken on a confirmed order of that nature. All those costs are submitted on the taxes as a priority lien. So that invoice was submitted for taxes once it was completed. And similarly with this, further to Member Reiner's question, that if the city did undertake that demolition, both the permit application and the cost of demolition, all that plus an additional 25% administrative fee as per the fees and charges bylaw, that amount would then be assessed on the taxes of this property. I hope that answers Member Reiner's question.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff at this time? Okay, I will now call upon the appellant to address the committee. Could you please provide the committee with your name and address and then advise the committee what you're asking for this evening?
Hi, my name is Samir, S-A-M-I-R, last name Saki, S-A-K-H-I, address 3410 South Service Road, Suite 102 in Burlington, Ontario.
And what is it that you're asking the committee for this evening, sir?
We're asking, I was there on site today with a couple demolition companies. We've actually signed an agreement with one of them. They will be doing their paperwork to apply for the demolition permit. And I just needed, from what they have told me, as you guys mentioned, it takes about a week or two maximum to get the permits done. And they needed 3 weeks after that, once they get the permit, to do the entire demolition for the house that was burnt and then the two barns in the back. So everything will be demolished. I was looking to get a 6-week extension if possible, please.
Okay, questions for the appellant, Mr. Smith? We've lost the sound, I think, from Mr.
And unmute, Damon.
Okay, sorry. I have a problem with the property being easily accessible to the public. I would feel much better about it, even with the timeline that you've asked. But if it was fenced off thoroughly so that no other harm can come to other inquisitive individuals such as kids. And that's my major concern. Are you going to take steps to complete this with all the fencing around the property?
Yes, definitely, we can do that. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting on Saturday with the demolition company. That's the first thing we were going to do just because of the time limit. It is unsafe, like you said. We were going to go there and he was going to give us a quote for fencing the whole thing until we get the permit and do the demolition. So hopefully the fencing will not be taking too long. We've made it clear that we want the fencing as soon as possible. It would most likely be fenced and closed, board up the barn doors and everything by next week, Wednesday, the latest.
Any further questions for the appellant? Any follow-up from staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the committee, I'm pleased to hear Mr. Saki's comment about the fencing. I certainly can echo Member Smith's concerns about the site of the property right now. As Acting Director Andy McMahon indicated, that a 2-week time period would be reasonable, and the appellant has indicated a 3-week time period to bring the building down. So the request for an extension of 6 weeks is relatively reasonable based on the timelines that are required. So we would support that time period. That's the position of staff at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion from committee dealing with this appeal. Mrs. Capoli?
I'd like to go with the 2-tier approach on this one. That the appeal filed by Samir Saki, owner of 88 Burkett Lane, property standards are 05-20 be allowed, and that the order be confirmed and upheld, but that the following extensions for time be granted to address fencing specifically, so that it must be completed by July 24th. And then for the following extension be granted to address the demolition of the remainder of the property by September 3rd.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Damon Smith. Is there any discussion required on the motion? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
All members in favor of the motion before you, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Damon Smith, Susan Kaplan, Tamara Capoli, Lee Reiner, Brenda Hertog. The motion is approved unanimously on a recorded vote.
Okay, the committee's decision has been made on your appeal. You will receive official notification of the decision from the building department. If you wish to appeal the decision to the Superior Court, instructions will be sent with the notification you receive from the building department. Because the committee did not quash the order, there will be an additional administrative fee of $125 assessed. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, guys.
Our next hearing is for Property Standards Order 45-20 for 489 Colburn Street, Brantford, and I will call upon staff to provide details of the report.
To the chair, to the committee, the property standards bylaw is primarily enforced on a reactive basis to complaints as they are received by the bylaw enforcement division of the building department. In this particular case, a complaint was received on December 3rd, 2019 from the Brantford Fire Prevention Department regarding a rather extensive fire at the house at 489 Colburn Street, Brantford. Municipal Law Enforcement Property Standards Officer Hannah Saunders attended the subject property the same day and confirmed extensive fire damage to the exterior of the building with all windows broken. As in standard practice, a preliminary letter was sent to the owners detailing the requirement to repair or demolish the fire damaged portions of this building as required in the city's property standards bylaw. The building in question is an older 2-story brick residential home occupied by a single family. On January 6, 2020, the owners contacted Officer Saunders to advise that they were starting to clear the debris. The officer advised owners to continue open communication as to their progress. Officer Saunders reattended on March 6, 2020, as communication with the owners had ceased. The property remained in a fire damaged state. It was the decision of the bylaw division of the building department to proceed to issue the applicable property standards order. A request was then made to the city's legal and real estate department to undertake a title search to confirm ownership. This information was returned on March 26, 2020, which showed that the subject property, known municipally as 489 Colburn Street, Brantford, Ontario, to be jointly owned by Wayne and Leanne Paley of Brantford. Accordingly, Property Standards Order 45-20 was issued on March 31st, 2020 to the registered owners, detailing the requirements to repair or demolish the fire damaged building. The final date for filing an appeal was April 21st, 2020, and a notice of appeal was filed by the owners on April 17th, 2020, requesting additional time to bring the property into compliance. At the writing of this report, the property remains in violation of both the issued property standards order and the city property standards bylaw. I'm asking that this order be upheld and confirmed.
Thank you. Any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, I will now call upon the appellant to address the committee. If you could please provide us with your name and address.
I'm Wayne Bailey. I live at 49 Colburn Street, Brantford, Ontario. My wife, Leanne Paley, at 49 Colburn Street. We had a fire in the building, and it was winter time, and there was other family issues that occurred at the time. We have taken steps to start the process. The COVID thing has made it so it's harder for us to get people in, get a storage unit at the time to take the stuff inside that is still salvageable and put it in storage so we can continue. I've lined up now guys to do the work. that needs to be done. We started some of the work outside, repaired the front step, the railing, the lower brick parts were repaired. We've taken steps to remove a lot of the stuff from the building. Finding windows that match the age of the building is difficult unless you get them custom made. So we spent time researching that. I'd like to get an extension of time to get the building finished. It's probably like 6 months. What's that? Yeah, we've had like 4 bins removed from the property. The building, I don't know. You say any questions?
So you're asking, just to clarify, sir, you're asking for a 6-month extension?
Yeah, I'm asking for a 6-month extension. Because of COVID, like people weren't allowed to get together, so you couldn't bring guys into work. I couldn't get a storage facility rented. Storage facilities are now available, so I can take the stuff that I owned that didn't get fire damaged and store that stuff. I've lined up materials for the building. We've done some work outside to the building to fix the steps. In the next couple of weeks, I'll have the bricks at the top finished, and we'll try to get it more aesthetically pleasing over the next, I'd say, 6 weeks, months.
Okay, we will entertain questions. Mrs. Capoli?
Hi, to the appellant through the chair. Just wonder, it looks like there was some extensive roof damage there. Just wondering during inspections if it was recommended that an engineer take a look at it, or is it structurally sound?
Yeah, it's structurally sound. There's not extensive damage to that. It looks bad with those bricks that come out of the top. I'm not sure if the firemen knocked that hole to get in there or not. But no, it's structurally sound.
Sorry, just to follow up, sir. So for the most part, it's cosmetic rather than.
Yes, yeah, it's cosmetic.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the appellant. Is the building secured and fenced off at all portions so that it's inaccessible?
I don't have it fenced off, but I have boards over all the openings so nobody can get into the building. I put up no trespassing signs, beware of dog signs. I don't think anybody can access the building.
Any further questions for the appellant at this time? Is there any follow-up from staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to the committee. The fire damage was rather extensive to this property. The repairs that are necessary to be undertaken are going to require building permits, and once that's taken, there may be more work that's required, certainly from a professional engineering perspective, to undertake those repairs. So the work may be more extensive than the appellant is putting forward. And again, our position regarding construction is construction's been allowed for quite some time now. Renovation workers have been allowed to move forward for more than 2 months now. So we're of the opinion that while there has been some marginal increase in the exterior, that the property still remains dramatically in disrepair, and we require this property to bring forward in compliance. Our concern is with safety. It's on Colburn Street, obviously a very busy corridor and a very busy area. And we're asking the committee that a 6-month extension of time is rather extensive. And we would ask that the committee not grant that extensive a time period and the repairs be moved forward in a more expeditious manner with all required permits to be applied for by the owner. That's our position at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions at all from the committee? I will now entertain a motion from the committee on dealing with this appeal. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like appeal filed by Wayne and Leanne Paley, co-owners of 489 Colburn Street, Brantford, Ontario, regarding property standards order 4520 be allowed and confirmed, be confirmed and upheld with an extension of nothing more than
October 19th.
yes, October 19th.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Susan Kaplan. Is there any discussion required on the motion? Mrs. Capoli?
Yeah, I don't, so just to clarify, sorry, Mr. Anderson, they haven't applied for any permits or demolition permits, or you haven't seen any plans of what the work on the inside has to be? I'm sorry, maybe Hannah can clarify that.
So we actually have not received any building permits. I have not been on the inside due to the fire and obviously COVID. So they have not applied for any demolition permits or building permits at this time.
Okay. Any further discussion required? Mrs. Kaplan?
Through Madam Chair to Gary. Gary, how many permit applications have you received between March and now? In general.
Sorry, through Madam Chair. I don't.
Sorry, received.
Yeah, sorry, Madam Chair, through the committee member. That I don't know. I'm gonna sadly defer to Mr. McMahon on a possible guess, but I know it's been a record year for permits being issued in the city of Brantford based on the last couple of building reports that have gone to council. So perhaps I'll defer to Mr. McMahon on that type of question.
Thank you. Through the chair, I don't have those exact numbers in front of me, but through the last 3 months, we have probably taken in and issued, I would estimate probably around 300 permits.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion required? I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
All those in favor of the motion placed before you, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Tamara Capoli, Brenda Hertog, Lee Reiner, Damon Smith, Susan Kaplan. The motion is approved unanimously on a recorded vote.
Thank you. The committee's decision has been made on your appeal, Mr. Paley. You will receive official notification of our decision from the building department. And if you wish to appeal the decision to the Superior Court, instructions will be sent with the notification you receive from the building department. Because the committee did not quash the order, there is an additional administrative fee of $125, which will be assessed. I'm sorry? You will receive all this information from the building department. Thank you, sir.
Oh, are you speaking with me? Sorry. They muted us, so she can't hear me. Oh. Can you hear me?
We can. Did you hear our decision?
Oh, okay. So I have like till October 19th to get the building done.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you'll send stuff in the mail. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, could I please have a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the previous meeting? Moved by Damon Smith, seconder. Lee Reiner. Are there any errors or omissions to be noted? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to call the vote.
All those in favor of the minutes, please raise your hand and leave it raised until you hear your name called. Damon Smith, Tamara Capoli, Lee Reiner, Susan Kaplan, Brenda Hertog. Thank you. The minutes carry unanimously on a recorded vote.
Mr. Anderson, are there any updates for the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the committee regarding some updates. As you can well imagine, everybody's world changed a few months ago, including those of us in bylaw enforcement. As you've heard a couple of times tonight from a couple of the officers, that we were not doing interior inspections, and that was primarily because of concern for safety of our staff, to not undertake those interior inspections, both building inspections and bylaw enforcement inspections. I can advise you now that both Mr. McMahon and I sit on the Emergency Operations Committee for the city that was developed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that on Monday of this week, we are starting interior inspections of all building matters and property standards, which is in line with the opening of stage 3. It was our position that as long as City Hall was primarily closed and most of Ontario was primarily closed, that we would not undertake interior inspections to put our staff at risk. And a review of other municipalities was somewhat over the map. Some were doing them, some were not, and some hadn't stopped. We felt it was important for the safety of our staff to stop. But I just wanted to update you that those inspections will start on Monday of this coming week. As for updates on files, because of the COVID pandemic, a lot of our shift on duties was taken away from our quote unquote regular bylaw work, and was put into the enforcement of the provincial COVID-19 orders, which my group took the lead on once they were passed and taken on. So I was also fortunate enough to have the ability to hire back 2 former staff of mine, a former student and a former officer, to assist with those duties, because as you can imagine, it became rather prevalent through March, April, and May, and into June. And since then, as you're all no doubtly aware, that a new bylaw was passed on Tuesday evening regarding the mandatory wearing of face coverings here in the city of Brantford, which has also fallen into our bailiwick to enforce. So that will certainly keep us busy, presumably in the short future. So I just want to explain, first of all, that a number of files sort of got left in the wayside when COVID hit, but we are playing catch up now. Officers are returning to regular duties, including interiors, as I just said. So we're hoping to play catch up. I wanted to talk to you briefly about one file that I know is near and dear to your heart. Is the 666 Colburn Street site, which is the old Brantford Hotel, which has been demolished. However, the site is not clear, and so there's still an issue there with that we're pursuing with the legal department and further action on our behalf to bring that property into compliance. So anyway, just a brief update to the committee on where we're at, where our team has been at, where our group has been at. We're very busy, working split shifts 7 days a week, 10 hours a day on both COVID enforcement and bylaws. So pretty tired group, but a pretty dedicated group. I'm proud of them. They work really hard and doing a job and trying to make the city a better place. So I just want to bring that forward to the committee as an update from staff here within my division. So hopefully that update proves satisfactory to you, Madam Chair, through the thing.
Well, I think I could probably speak for everyone, and thank you for everything that you're doing. It's been a struggle for everyone, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for keeping us safe.
I will not argue that it's been a struggle. It's been very difficult. It's very challenging. We're enforcing new legislation that we're not used to. It's challenging on staff. It's challenging on the public. It's challenging on elected officials. So it has been challenging, but they've met every kudos to the officers that you've seen on the screen tonight and some that aren't here. Very dedicated group, very engaged group. So I'm proud to be their manager and moving forward with these matters. So I appreciate the support from the committee and staff appreciate it as well. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess we're adjourned.
Just, sorry, through you, Chair, quickly. We do have one appeal that's already, that needs to be filed, or has been filed, sorry, and will occur in August. So I will be sending out some subsequent dates for a hearing. I would normally set it now, but because it's virtual, I have to take a look in the system to see if anybody else has been scheduled as well. But you will receive a number of dates if you could provide your availability thereafter.
Okay, I guess we're adjourned.
Bye, everyone.
Everyone doing